go ahead and get settled in a little bit and get going. Of course, to make it all official, we'll need our chair to call us to order then.
All right. We are ready to call to order the Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission. I think we're ready for our roll call.
Yes, sir. All right. Taylor Van Dever.
Here.
Brett Mansfield.
Here.
Will Haston.
Here.
Francie Mello.
Here.
Sandra Tuck.
Here.
Dr. Mark Sunderman.
Here.
Eric Robinson.
Here.
And Nelson Pratt. And I think
Here
Nelson.
virtually.
Oh, thank you, sir. I thought I saw you somewhere in there. So, yeah, Nelson, Mr. Pratt's going to be joining us virtually. He won't be voting on the item, so we'll be able to still do voice votes until we get to the rulemaking hearing. Of course, we got to do a roll call vote for that, but subject to that. But he will be participating in the comments and the discussion per usual. So, and feel free to do that. And just if you need to, Mr. Pratt, just type a note in there in the box if you're wanting to speak, and then Miss Griffey can let me know that you're wanting to speak, or just pipe in. So we're all at the dinner table here, so if you can get in, get in. But I think we're ready then for.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. The notes of the public comment period will be located at the end of the agenda. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, if they want to go ahead and sign in there, and then I'll recognize those folks at that time. And we'll give another opportunity as we get there as well. And those are for the folks in the chat too. If you want to speak at that time, go ahead and sign in and indicate an interest and desire to do so. All right, so the meeting notice. Notice of the January 21st, 2025 meeting of the Real Estate Appraiser Commission has been noticed on the website since September 25th, 2024. This month's agenda was posted on January 14th, 2025. The next thing we have on the agenda is to adopt the agenda itself. So,
Has everybody had an opportunity to look over the agenda? And get a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Have a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the November 4th, 2024 meeting minutes. Any changes?
Motion to adopt.
Have a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Our next item up is the rulemaking hearing.
Anna will be driving this one. This is, of course, the next step. You approve the retrospective rules, and so to make it all official, we have to have our rulemaking hearing. So she'll be driving that one going forward. Of course, we have the court reporter to record that activity as well. And at this point, we'll have to do the roll call vote for every item that we approve to include the statements at the end.
Good morning. This rulemaking hearing is called to order. My name is Anna Matlock. I serve as an Associate General Counsel in the Department of Commerce and Insurance, Division of Regulatory Boards, and I represent the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission. Would the agency representatives who are present introduce themselves for the record?
My name is Glenn Kopchik. I'm the Executive Director. And then if we can just start maybe from the left to the right, that'd be fine, just to kind of move along. And just for the record, just introduce yourself and basically a member or Education Committee member.
Mark Sunderman, Education Committee member.
Francie Mello, member.
Will Haston, Commission member.
Sandra Tuck, Commission member.
Brett Mansfield, Commission member.
Taylor Vandiver, Commission member.
Eric Robinson, Commission member.
Today is Monday, January 21st, Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. This rulemaking hearing is taking place pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4-5-204 in Conference Room 1B, Davy Crockett Tower at 500 James Robertson Parkway, Nashville, Tennessee, and also available by electronic means via Microsoft Teams, which can be located on the program's website, www.tn.gov/regboards/triac/meetings.html. On this page, the link for the access to the rulemaking hearing via Microsoft Teams can be found in the chart located in the middle of the webpage in the row with the date 1/21/2025 in the location column under the words Davy Crockett Tower, first floor conference room 1B, Nashville, TN, labeled Connect. The purpose of this rulemaking hearing is to solicit comments on the rule amendments to the rules and regulations of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission. The proposed rules amend certain general provisions and reciprocity rules resulting from the department's review as required by the General Assembly's enactment of Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4-5-213. Specifically, the application upgrade fee is eliminated along with fees for temporary authorization for military applicants, and the reciprocal certificate issuance fee is reduced. Also, the experience and appraisal log requirements for registered trainees are amended. Lastly, a portion of the proposed rule amendments update and clarify the educational requirements for qualifications for general certification, as required following an audit from the appraisal subcommittee. A rule is defined as an agency statement of general applicability that implements or prescribes law or policy or describes the procedures or practice requirements of the agency. Proposed rules are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State. Notice is given to the public for comment, and a rulemaking hearing is held. Upon conclusion of the hearing and adoption of the proposed rules, the rules are forwarded to the Attorney General's office for review of legality. If approved, they are filed with the Secretary of State, which is responsible for publication, and the Government Operations Committee of the General Assembly. The rules must stay with the Secretary of State's office for 90 days, then end of which time will be the effective date. Please listen carefully. Those members of the public wishing to speak and appearing in person should place their name in the sign-in sheet on the podium to my left. Those members of the public wishing to speak and appearing via Microsoft Teams should put their name in the chat box. Oral comments will only be accepted by those who have written their name on the sign-in sheet and typed their name in the chat box. Is there anyone else that desires to offer oral comments but has not written their name on the sign-in sheet or typed their name in the chat box?
And this would be specific to the rules themselves. The public comment period will be at the end of the agenda.
Seeing that there are none, for those attending this hearing in person, I would call your attention once again to the podium. On the podium, you will find red-line copies of the rule amendments addressed in today's rulemaking hearing. For those attending on Microsoft Teams, you will find a link in the chat box to the red-line copy of the rule amendments for today's rulemaking hearing. The notice of rulemaking hearing included the entire text of the proposed rules and were published on the Tennessee Administrative website on September 21st, 2024. Mr. Kopchak, what additional notice was given to the affected individuals or groups?
Information for the time and location of the hearing was placed on the program's website, and an e-notify was sent to all licensees signed up for the program system on September 27th, 2024.
As the agency hears public comment on the proposed rules, I, as moderator, reserve the right to limit such comments if they become repetitive. Please limit your comments accordingly. I will now summarize the substance of the proposed rules into the record. Rule 1255-01-.04, Application for Appraiser License or Certification, Paragraph 6 is amended by deleting the text of subparagraphs B, D, and E. Rule 1255-01-.04, Application for Appraiser License or Certification, Paragraph 7 is amended by adding the language credit or debit cards. Rule 1255-01-.05, Qualifications for State Licensed Appraisers, Paragraph 1, Subparagraph C, Part 3, Subpart B, is amended by deleting the text up to the maximum allotted property type. Rule 1255-01-.08, Qualifications for General Certification, Paragraph 1, Subparagraph D, Part 4, Subpart 5, is amended by deleting the text up to the maximum allotted property type. Rule 1255-01-.08, Qualifications for General Certification, Paragraph 1, Subparagraph I, is amended by adding an S to subparagraph and adding the language or H. Rule 1255-01-.12, Registered Trainee, Paragraph 4, Subparagraph G, is amended by adding the language or until the supervisory appraiser determines the registered trainee is competent to inspect the property in accordance with the competency rule of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, USPAP, for the type property. Well, Rule 1255-06-.01, Reciprocal Agreements, Paragraph 4, is amended by deleting the text in its entirety. and substituting language instead. Rule 1255-06-.03, expedited registration for certain military personnel and spouses, paragraph 2 and subparagraph 2C, are amended by deleting the text in its entirety and substituting language instead. Mr. Kopchak, were any written comments received by the Commission Office for the rule amendments that were not forwarded to me prior to today's hearing?
No.
I will now solicit comments from individuals present at today's meeting, either in person or via Microsoft Teams. Seeing that there are none, this now concludes the comment period for this rulemaking package. First, I will need, lastly, there are several measures that will need to be read into the record as required by TCA Section 4-5-222. All voting will be conducted by roll call. First, I will need a motion to adopt the hearing rule language as presented.
Okay, and this is, doesn't appear to be any amendments to that, so it'll just be the rules as you have before you, as you've seen before. So I'll need to go and do the roll call. Taylor Van Dever,
Aye.
Brett Mansfield,
Yes.
Will Haston,
Yes.
Francie Mello,
Yes.
Sandra Tuck,
Yes.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Yes.
Eric Robinson.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Next, I will read the regulatory flexibility addendum. Pursuant to TCA Sections 4-5401 through 4-5404, prior to initiating the rulemaking process, all agencies shall conduct a review of whether a proposed rule or rule affects small business. Prompt 1, the type or types of small business and identification of estimate of the number of small businesses subject to the rule being proposed that would bear the cost of or directly benefit from the rule being proposed. Answer 1. The Commission does not anticipate the rule amendments to directly impact small businesses, nor should those small businesses bear costs to comply with the rule amendments. The rule amendments will apply equally to those impacted licensees. As the rule amendments impose no new license requirements, a cost of compliance, if any, will be minimal. Prompt 2. The projected reporting, record keeping, and other administrative costs required for compliance with the rule being proposed, including the type of professional skills necessary for preparation of the report or record. Answer 2, the Commission does not foresee a cost for the administration and enforcement of these rules. Prompt 3, a statement of the probable effect on impacted small businesses and consumers. Answer 3, the Commission does not anticipate the rules to directly impact small businesses, as these rule amendments apply to the impacted licensees on an individual basis. Small business will not incur any costs. The Commission does not foresee an impact on consumers because of the rule amendments. Prompt 4, a description of any less burdensome, less intrusive, or less costly alternative methods of achieving the purpose and objectives of the rule being proposed that may exist, and to what extent the alternative means might be less burdensome to small business. Answer 4, the Commission knows of no other less restrictive or burdensome means than through the promulgation of these rules as amended. Prompt 5, a comparison of the rule being proposed with any federal or state counterparts. Answer 5, all states that are regulated by the ASC have rules that the proposed promulgated. Therefore, the rule amendments may be like current or proposed rules and regulations in other jurisdictions. Prompt 6, analysis of the effect of the possible exemption of small businesses from all or any part of the requirements contained in the rule being proposed. Answer 6, the Commission does not anticipate rules to directly impact small businesses. All rule amendments affect the impacted licensees individually and are specific to the real estate appraiser industry. Therefore, an exemption for small business would not be beneficial. I will now need a motion to adopt the regulatory flexibility addendum.
I realized that I didn't get the motion for the rules, so we'll just do it to both unless there's any edits here. So a motion for both the rules and the regulatory flexibility addendum.
So moved.
Got a motion from Brett Mansfield, a second from Sandra Tuck for a roll call vote. Taylor Van Dever,
Yes.
Brett Mansfield,
Yes.
Will Haston,
Yes.
Francie Mello, Sandra Tuck,
Yes.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Yes.
Eric Robinson.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I will now read the impact on local government statement pursuant to TCA Section 4-5-228. The Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission foresees no impact on any local governments. I will now need a motion to adopt the impact on local government statement.
So moved.
Got a motion from Brett Mansfield, a second from Sandra Tuck. Roll call vote, Taylor Van Dever,
Yes.
Brett Mansfield,
Yes.
Will Haston,
Yes.
Francie Mello,
Yes.
Sandra Tuck,
Yes.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Yes.
Eric Robinson.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I will now read the answers to the questions required by the Joint Government Operations Committee. All agencies, upon filing a rule, must submit the following pursuant to TCA Section 4-5-226I1. A brief summary of the rule and a description of all relevant changes and previous regulations effectuated by such rule. Response. The proposed rules amend certain general provisions and reciprocity rules resulting from the department's review as required by the General Assembly's enactment of Tennessee Code annotated Section 4-5-213. Specifically, the application upgrade fee is eliminated along with fees for temporary authorization for military applicants, and the reciprocal certificate issuance fee is reduced. Also, the experience and appraisal log requirements for registered trainees are amended. Lastly, a portion of the proposed rule amendments update and clarify educational requirements for qualifications for general certification as required following an audit from the appraisal subcommittee. B, a citation to and specific description of any federal law or regulation or any state law or regulation mandating promulgation of such rule or establishing guidelines relevant thereto. Response, a portion of the rules are required to comply with Title 11 of the Financial Reform, Recovery and Enforcement Act of 1989, FREA, which requires appraisers performing assignments in federally related transactions meet qualifications by the Appraiser Qualifications Board, AQB, and the ASC. There are no known state or other federal laws or regulations mandating the promulgation of these amendments. C, identifications of persons, organizations, corporations, or governmental entities most directly affected by this rule, and whether those persons, organizations, corporations, or governmental entities urge adoption or rejection of this rule. Response, the rule amendments affect current and future licensees as well as applicants. Proponents of the rule amendments include current and future licensees, as the amendments positively impact those within the industry and are required for federal compliance with existing uniform regulations for real estate appraisers. Further, as most of these rule amendments are clerical in nature, the Commission does not foresee a segment of opponents to the amendments. D, identification of any opinions of the Attorney General and reporter or any judicial ruling that directly relates to the rule or the necessity to promulgate the rule. Response, there are no known opinions of the Attorney General and reporter or any judicial ruling that directly relates to the rule or the necessity to promulgate the rule. E, an estimate of the probable increase or decrease in state and local government revenues and expenditures, if any, resulting from the promulgation of this rule, and assumptions and reasoning upon which the estimate is based. An agency shall not state the fiscal impact is minimal if the fiscal impact is more than 2% of the agency's annual budget or $500,000, whichever is less. Response, there is no foreseeable probable increase or decrease in state and local government revenues and expenditures. F, identification of the appropriate agency representative or representatives possessing substantial knowledge and understanding of the rule. Response, Anna Matlock and Glenn Kopchak. G, identification of the appropriate government agency representative or representatives will explain the rule at a scheduled meeting of the committees. Response, Anna Matlock and Glenn Kopchak. H, office address, telephone number, and email address of the agency representative or representatives who will explain the rule at the scheduled meeting of the committees. Response, the contact information for Anna Matlock and Glenn Kopchak are listed I, any additional information relevant to the rule proposed for continuation that the committee requests, response not applicable. I will now need a motion to adopt the additional information for the Joint Government Operations Committee.
So moved.
Yeah, we have a motion from Brett Mansfield, a second from Sandra Tuck for roll call vote. Taylor Van Dever,
Yes.
Brett Mansfield,
Yes.
Will Haston,
Yes.
Francie Mello,
Yes.
Sandra Tuck,
Yes.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Yes.
Eric Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you.
That concludes this rulemaking hearing. Following this hearing, the rules will be put on a rulemaking filing form, SS 7039, submitted to the Governor's Office for final review, and then submitted to the Attorney General's Office for review and approval. Once the Attorney General's signature is obtained, these rules are filed with the Secretary of State and generally become effective 90 days from the date of filing after receiving a positive recommendation from the Joint Government Operations Committee. Thank you for being here today.
All right. Thank you, Anna. As always, excellent job. Up next on our agenda is our experience interviews.
Okay. Let me get there myself there. All right, you have 3 in front of you today. We've got, I'm just going to go and confirm to see if there's anyone else added. And at the end, also give an opportunity if someone else had one that didn't come through and so that we need to add to the report. Right now, we have Mr. Mansfield with Benjamin Crawford for an upgrade to certified residential. The recommendation is yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Miss Sandra Tuck, you have Lamar Davis, certified residential, and the recommendation is yes?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Van Dever, we have William Elmer, certified general, and the recommendation was yes?
Correct.
Okay. Did any of you 3 have anyone else added or, okay. Anyone else with the board, did they have anyone else that needed to be added to the report? Okay. I'm hearing none, then we'll just need a motion to accept the experience interviews.
Motion to accept.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Up next is our education report.
I'm having a hard time finding it.
If you can use your mic there, sorry, Dr. Sunderman, if we can just get you on the mic there.
Yes.
Yep.
I've reviewed the different course applications for the January meeting, and I move that they all be accepted.
Excellent. We've got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Sunderman.
Thank you.
All right. Up next is our election of officers.
Yes, 62-39-202B simply states, "The members of the commission shall elect a chair from among the members to preside at commission meetings." It doesn't say annual, it doesn't say, chair, vice chair, secretary, just chair, and so we have to do that. We've done that, but it's been close to 2 years, so it's probably a good time to, give the commission an opportunity since we've had our board fill out and got some, a little bit more veteran experience as well. So you're only required to select a chair. The board has historically selected a vice chair just for continuity of operations, so the chair step out. We just haven't somebody identified as, to take on that role. It just seems to move. So I would, ask you to consider that. If you chose to continue that, that would be great. If not, that's fine too, but just the chair would be the primary one we'd have to focus on. Right now, your officers, as you know, are Mr. Mansfield and Ms. Tuck is our vice chair, and there's nothing that would prohibit you from consecutive terms either. So it's just really it's up to you. If there's any nominations on the floor, we consider that, vote on that. And
I would make a motion to keep Mr. Mansfield and Ms. Tuck as chairman and vice chairman.
I would second that.
okay, that's good. We got a motion on the floor from Mr. Haston. We've got a second from Mr. Robinson. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, then I hope you guys didn't mind for another hitch. So the grassroots, they reached up and put you into service. That's all right. All right. Well, it's a very robust election season, and I
Yes.
appreciate your hard work and going out to the polls like you did, and democracy at work. So, all right. All right. Looks like we're ready then for the director's report. The budget report is simply just a informational purposes only. Of course, I welcome any questions you may have on that, but let me just hit the highlights as I usually try to do, because obviously if you're probably thinking the same things I think. You look at it and there's going to be things that are going to dial up and hit your attention. So let me just see if I can cover that first, and then I'll take any questions you have afterwards. At our last meeting in November, we reviewed both the reserves and all the months of record available to us at that time. That was July through September. Our fiscal year is June to July. And so, but we did capture the reserves last time to kind of see where we're at, and then we had our reporting through September. So as a result, I'm going to focus primarily on the last 2 months of record, October and November. I did note that there's 18,000 in ASC fees in October and nearly 7,000 in November. So you're seeing a little bit of a dip there. If you look under other, October and November, kind of a spike, and so that 24,000 at 18,000 of the one in October was ASC fees going back to them, and then 7,000 in November. We are currently in our reporting period, as you know, with the AMCs. Mr. Robinson knows that well, along with our other AMC guys. And that's going to be through January through March for prior calendar years. So I suspect we'll see a lot of that. Revenues will probably spike, and then typically there's a lag there. So the expenses come usually about a month. We receive it, but by the time we fill out the invoice, have it billed, and then forwarded it to ASC, you can see there's usually a little bit of a lag. So expect some of that when you see that in the budget. And then also technology expenses in October. I noticed a spike there too. Let me get down there. Yep. And I pulled that one right quick, and then that looked like that was, it looked like that was pretty much across the board in all of the reg boards. Basically, we had a supplemental contract to cover the 6-month gap between the old core contract that ended in June 30th of last year and the new core contract that started in 1/1/2025. So obviously they were negotiations for a while, but we had a gap, and so that contract was being forwarded and sort of billed across all the programs. So that's what you're seeing there in technology. Other than that, I didn't really see anything else that just jumped out at me that seemed outside the norm. Of course, I welcome any questions or comments that you have on it looks we're trending fairly well. Obviously, we're still in in a surplus of $7,000. But we're gonna keep an eye on all those expenses. I mean, there's just basic expenses that we have to deal with technology and the rest.
Those ASC fees, are those paid with those 2 months, or is that something to expect moving forward?
No,
as well?
those are paid. Yep.
Okay.
So you won't see that again. But we'll see a big revenue spike in the next few months because AMC's bringing those. We're basically just a clearinghouse. We're taking the money and then forwarding that to ASC. So
What I'm having a hard time. Where's the ASC fees included in this?
yes, if you look at okay, we've got the revenue on the top, of course, the expenses down below, and right there at near that top quarter of expenses, you've got other, like 3 rows down, October and November, 24,000 right there, and that 13,000 right there. That's sort of a catch-all because obviously Edison doesn't have across the programs doesn't for every program have a bucket for ASC fees. That's unique to us, so that's why it falls under other. It's other expenditure, but you'll see it in revenue, those spikes. So probably, when we get our January, February, March reporting, you should see spikes there in revenue as a result of their reporting and paying those fees. And then there should be a subsequent lag after that as well. We had some folks getting caught up. You have some folks pay early. Now they can't pay earlier in January, but you have some folks that will. We were taking some time to get them current and get them compliant, and that's some of that.
And so the revenue for that would be under the licensing revenue?
Yes, so that'll be right under licensing revenue. There's just, I mean, there's only, case revenue would be like disciplinary action. See that $500 in July? That's somebody paying their fee for that. We assess the $500 penalty. State reg fee is a reduction of expenses. That's basically finance and administration through general services printing our licenses for us. And so then they're just reducing, it's really an expense, but it's a workaround is what it is. And so you're looking at about $5 or $10, $5 per, I want to say year, and $10 per every two biennial. That's why you have that reduction there. And that'll always be, you'll see the brackets there across. That's them printing our licenses for that month is what that is. So that should be nominal. So that's what we got going on there. Anything else to jump out at you? And of course, if you drive home and you're a sort of a numbers guy or gal, and it's something you got a burning question, just give me a call, and then we'll deep dive and get into it. Okay. Right now though, we're okay. Anything grossly out of the ordinary. Yep. Chair, if I may, I thought about it after the rulemaking hearing, but then I just blew on. I guess I figured we could, for help our court reporter, if we can just take a brief recess. Just to give her a chance to sort of unpack and sort of, head on out the door and without any disruption to the hearing here.
Absolutely.
All
Maybe
right.
10 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. We'll come back at 9:41.
All right, sounds good.
I think we are ready.
All right, it looks like it is 9:41. Chair, if you want to call us back to order, we'll just we'll get after it.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. We were still in the director's report, correct?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
right. We finished up the budget. The only other thing we had was the AQB practicum pathway. We've got Melissa Bond on the line. She's going to chime in here in just a second. I believe she's joined us virtually, and she'll introduce the practicum program that she has in Mississippi. It's just for sake of your awareness. We don't have an application in front of us, so it's not an application review. It's just the concept of a practicum. We don't have one in Tennessee yet, and there's 3 pathways to account for training up to a certified residential, which includes the practicum. And so she's, considering bringing that here. She'd still have to submit an application and then you would review that application on the merits of that course once that's received. So there's no action required at this time until we get that, but of course, feel free to ask her any questions and keep that as interactive as you want to make that. But Ms. Bond, are you on the line? Is she on the line? She is. Okay. Ms. Bond, we just need you to unmute, and then you can go ahead and address the commission that's sitting here before you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay, good. I have several microphones. Please forgive me. I had to find the one that you could actually hear me on.
That's all right. Well,
So,
we've got you now. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, each of you that are here in attendance. And yes, I would like to discuss with you the practicum pathway to licensing. As was mentioned, this is an AQB pathway that has been outlined since 2008. This has been an option for new appraisers to enter into our profession. In 2020, I developed it along with 5 other instructors, national instructors. We developed the coursework for this practicum, and it is now in its 4th successful run. This practicum pathway has already been established by AQB, so if you align with AQB guidelines, your state can already accept it. Also, as was mentioned, I have not put in the application to you yet, but will do that because I do have some folks in Tennessee that are wanting to utilize this pathway to becoming a licensed appraiser. So, and consequently certified. So, what I say to you is this. It is, of course, something that you will approve just as you approve CE credit. You've been approving CE credit for me for, I don't know, a dozen years or better. I am a national education provider. And that is exactly the way you would approach this practicum. It is the coursework that you're looking at to approve. The AQB's already outlined it. All else falls upon the education provider to develop. It has been successful. The folks that exit this practicum that I have developed far exceed the national first-time test takers average for passing, first go round passing. The things that they learn are, I would say, probably a good 5 years to 8 years into our profession. The amount of information they're exposed to, the types of reports they are taught, as well as the exposure to FHA guidelines, VA guidelines, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. USPAP is our foundation, without which, of course, none of us would be here, as you all know. The ways that we learn, they learn virtually. We meet virtually 8 times a week. They will also meet with me in person. I like to call it our feet on the same dirt. They will meet with me in person. We will also go into the field. We will measure houses. We will learn construction. It is a completely hands-on approach to gaining those experience hours. This is not simply sitting in a classroom doing virtual exercises. This is them actually performing appraisal assignments. Now, in order to exit this practicum program, they are required to do 20 appraisal reports completely on their own. These are the exhibits that you, of course, would look at as you do now when you make that decision, if they are prepared to sit for that national licensing exam. No different than what you do now. So, that's a little bit of an overview of how this practicum unfolds. I can tell you that it has been highly successful. I can tell you that it has helped to meet the need to keep our state stable as far as its numbers of appraisers go. This practicum, my practicum, has already been accepted in Louisiana, Arkansas, South Carolina, Mississippi, and there are other states I'm working with now. It's already been accepted in West Virginia. Other states I'm working with to ensure that we can pull in the numbers that are needed to really keep that economic stability in our states going. As we all know, the average age of an appraiser is a little bit advanced. I won't get into the numbers, but a little bit advanced. So we do need new individuals coming in, but we need highly qualified individuals coming in. I call my folks that come in and exit this program the new generation of appraisers, because it's not treated as an apprenticeship, which is what we all know that it came from. That was back when we were first licensed. I've been licensed over 30 years. It was an apprenticeship. You interned with someone. You learned what they did. This is different. You learn appraising. You just don't only learn whatever your supervisor is exposed to. They're exposed to manufactured homes, large vacant tracts, FHA appraisals, VA appraisals, conventional, manufactured homes, condos. They are exposed to a plethora of property types. So that's an overview. I could go on and on. I do not want to tax your time because I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. I will certainly entertain any question that you may have regarding this. Yes, there is a fee involved. That's the first question I typically get. Yes, there is a fee involved.
All right. Ms. Bond, thank you for joining us. I had the opportunity to hear your presentation at Aero in Savannah, where it was a lot more in depth, and it really is an impressive program. Question for you. So you said the boots on the ground, you're actually meeting appraisers in the field. How exactly does that work in a different state from where you're located?
Thank you for asking that question. I travel to the trainees. You know, it's easier for one person to travel than for everyone to have to travel. And especially now that I'm taking in different states, I travel to that state. If I have someone in Tennessee or several someones that are within that same program, I will travel to Tennessee, then they may meet me at a central location. All of that is taken into consideration when I make the decision of who's going to enter the program. Thankfully, I have far more applicants than I can take in at one time. Sometimes I need to move them into the next program because I look at the logistics of location.
Was there any other questions from the board for Ms. Bond?
Ms. Bond, when do you plan on applying with the state of Tennessee?
As soon as this meeting is over, I really like to break the ice just a little bit and allow you the opportunity to ask questions if maybe some of you are not familiar enough with the program, and then I make my application to the state. So shortly after this meeting.
And Glenn, this is something that Mr. Sunderman or Dr. Sunderman will be reviewing extensively?
That's correct. And obviously, since it's relatively new as well, you know, we can, you know, preempt. He's the point of the spear. Obviously, he's our expert, and so he'll do a lot of that early staging for us. And then I suspect there'll probably be some questions to follow, and probably some introduction. You know, at that time, if you know, at our next meeting when we get that application, there'll probably be. And of course, if Ms. Bond, if you're available for our next meeting, I suspect that the board would probably appreciate just having you there to bounce off any questions that may arise. You know, it may not be necessarily, might not be necessary, but if you were, that'd be good too.
Okay, yes, sir. I certainly will be in attendance. And again, your comfort level is necessary. So questions are very welcomed. And I know that when it's reviewed, there may be some questions that come up. I am always available to discuss.
Thank you for your time, and virtual, of course, would be fine. We appreciate you taking the time, though, chiming in and giving the board that information. And well, of course, we'll circle back if we have any questions once we receive the application.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Hey, Glenn, I do think that, you know, in this instance that it's kind of a little bit more than just education. And so, you know, even having the other commissioners take a look at the program
Yes.
as well and getting that to us so we can look and provide some feedback to Dr. Sunderman and just all have, just be familiar with it before the next meeting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. My instincts were kind of driving in that direction anyway. That's why I mentioned he'll be the point of the spear, just sort of early staging. But I suspected we were going to need some more, you know, some more eyes on it, because to your point, it isn't just education. There is some experience component that satisfies. You know, as you know, AQB, they allow three approaches to gain experience in NQE. QE and experience is rolled into PREA and the practicum. And then you, of course, have the supervisor model, which everyone's familiar with since its inception, for just the experience. But this would satisfy the experience as well. And so as a result, you're going to be looking at those applications. You know, you do, you know, if you're going to be doing your interviews, we're going to have to work that out too. You know, and so there's just an opportunity for us to sort of kick the tires a little bit until we're all comfortable and we know what we're doing. And so we'll definitely have that opportunity. And then if there's any sort of hesitance, you know, Ms. Bond did mention that, you know, per AQB, you would be allowed to accept it. TCA, just to give you, just to quote out the statutes for that. I actually had this for our rule review later in case we needed it, but TCA 6239, I think it's a good refresher. 6239 329 states that the commission shall not establish any criteria for licensure that are more stringent than the criteria established by the Federal Appraiser Qualification Board. So, we can't establish any criteria that's more stringent that's why in our rules, I always try to keep that in front of us if we're talking about AQB criteria. The other one too, though, but it also means that if they accept it, then we wouldn't necessarily go less than, so we would have to consider it and think about it. So it is a viable pathway to consider, and so we need to look at that and do our due diligence. And then also 6239-303, 2 says, to qualify for Part 1, to qualify for a real estate appraiser license, an applicant must, 1, have a high school diploma and its equivalent, and 2, have met the current requirements for licensure as set forth by the Appraisal Qualification Board, AQB, of the Appraisal Foundation. So, we look at their criteria, and that's really the standard. And I think that's instructive. So really, it's a great segue, since we're talking about practicum, to put that before us and sort of remember what the standard is when we get into discussion about rules later. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say the video that was presented in Savannah at Aero would be very good to be presented here so that the people that didn't see it would see what the program was, because it was a very I can't use that word, but it told us what the program was.
Ms. Bond, are you still on the call? If
Yes,
not-
sir, I
Oh,
certainly am, and I would be happy to share that with everyone and unfold the program to you. In fact, I can send you an email with several links of videos such as that just unfold how the program works and how and why it's superior to maybe what is happening now. And I don't want to say anything against the supervisor training model, because of course we were all trained that way. Just there's a new generation. There's some we're modernizing. Let's call it that. Modernizing the way that we learn.
yeah, that'd be great. I'll tell you what, I'll send the links then by request to each of you. There's no reason to watch that here to collectively when you could watch that individually and sort of really wrap your mind around it. But then Ms. Bond, if she was attending virtually, then she could answer your follow-up questions to the application which you have in front of us. Would that satisfy everyone? Would that sort of kind of be a good primer? Okay. That sounds great. Thank you, Ms. Bond.
Thank you.
Brent, this is going to be entirely different than what I've been reviewing before. And I don't know exactly what policies we have as a board, even in terms of how this is even to be reviewed in terms of the content material provided. So I'm going to be very dependent upon the board here. And obviously, it looks like the way this is set up, it's more than just a online course that we're reviewing, or a face-to-face course, or even reviewing a conference where someone's attending. So I rely greatly on the rest of you to make sure that we handle this appropriately.
I think the QE portion is going to be your bread and butter,
Yeah,
and so when we get in that experience sort of, territory, and then you'll have to separate some of that, because I'm sure there's some that probably coexist together, and then so we'll have to sort of.
Yeah, because the educational components, I mean, in terms of, that's one thing. Obviously, when we're dealing with the educational component in terms of the actual appraisal, things like this, that type training is totally different than what I'd be looking at in terms of courses. So how we combine this all together. And realistically, this may be more what we may be dealing with in the future than just some of the courses I've been looking at. And I don't know, does this require us to even redo the way we evaluate courses in the future?
I don't think so, just because Perea's already accepted. That's a program that's out of the box. AQB does that. You got your standard QE, which is the process that we use right now. Practicum is sort of the one-off. You know what I mean? So and there's not a lot of practicums for now. Now, if we, outside of this program, if we find that there's others that are wanting to enter into that space, then we probably would have to look at that and make sure that something that we've done with other boards, we'll see the application first, but the chair could call a committee meeting prior to our board meeting and then just a few select folks to sort of hammer out some of those details before we go into the full board, and the full board at that point, well, that's sort of the primer, you come with your questions, because we can't work collectively if there's two or more together, we have to notice that. And so one way we satisfy that requirement as a board and stay within the sunshine law is to just do a committee meeting an hour before. Like, we would meet, our board meeting be at 10, the committee meeting be at 9. We could work out some of those details in that work group. You bring your stuff with you. And a lot of that stuff, I always prefer folks, if that's some stuff that I can coordinate for you in advance, so we have a work product, that's helpful. So that way we're ready for action when we come to that board meeting at 10 o'clock. So if there's anything you think of that I need to help coordinate, in between you, so that we can maintain and observe that sunshine law, then let me know.
I would think that we would probably want to do that in considering this. I just think that it's a pretty big step for us to really dive into. So I would more than welcome a committee meeting before the actual board meeting.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea. Is this something you envision us voting on at the next meeting? More than likely, if the application.
Oh, I mean, only if you're ready. I mean, if you're missing anything, obviously everyone has to feel comfortable. Since it is a new pathway. I mean, if there's, for sake of efficiency, and also to be as responsive as we can to our applicants, I always want to make sure that if it is actionable, that we've done all the preliminary homework to be prepared. But if we're missing some stuff too, we're not going to rush it. Like, if you need that extra time, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think if everybody could, watch the video, I think it does provide a lot of explanation on the program, and it'll maybe answer some of the questions as well. And then with the committee providing feedback, would that go to you and then to the committee, or how would that set up work?
You could select, hand select a couple folks that want to sit on that committee. It doesn't have to be the full board, because they're going to meet at 10, The committee is just that. If it was the full board, then we would just do our board meeting, and then it would be an agenda item. So you're only looking at maybe a couple folks, like, perhaps Mr. Haston or Ms. Tuck, and then, of course, our QE Education Committee chair. And then those of, whoever you want to use, that would be the committee. They would sort of work out, they come with their questions and stuff. So, and then, and if we can hammer some of that out, and if they haven't, that's okay. They can pitch it to the full board. They can say, hey, look, it won't be actionable. It won't be, they're not taking formal action, because they don't have the weight of the full board. It's just a committee, but they can bring their questions or their resolutions. They say, hey, we worked this out, and I know your mind might be going here, but we've already satisfied that with this, that sort of stuff.
What's the number of the committee you said before we crossed that threshold?
You could do 3, 4. I mean, you can, I would say at least 3, because typically you need somebody to throw typically odd number to throw off, any gridlock. But again, it's not actionable necessarily. The board is what takes action.
Okay, I think that's great. Do we have any volunteers to maybe?
I'd love to be on the committee.
Yeah, yeah, you're stuck.
Well, it looks like there's our 3 then.
Well, we got
right?
our 3 right there. So if that's fine, we'll just schedule that then. That'll be 3. Yeah, you'll do 3. I'll send you an invite. You're just coming at 9 o'clock. The full board will meet at 10.
And then, but everybody will receive the
Chair?
information.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Ms. Bond?
May I, thank you for acknowledging. May I interject that at any time, if there is a question to anyone that is on this newly formed committee, I am always available for answers. I find that it's better to meet with someone and give them their answer, and it helps you to make a best decision. So I'm always available for any questions, even after this meeting, if someone says, I'd like for you to unfold this to me. So I'm always available, because I know this is successful. It has been successful. You can also reach out to your other states. As I've said, there are now 5 that have already approved this. I've gone through this process with each of them. Talk to your peers. I think that also will assist, but I am here for anything that you may need. And thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. And the committee members, you're welcome to reach out to her direct. We do that with our experience interviews. Dr. Sunman will at times have to do that as well. So that's wholly appropriate. That's fine. We typically we prefer an intermediary through Will, but in this case, there's a that lag in transferring a message. You can do that direct. That's fine.
One question I've got is that, I've been dealing with Will. With the courses we work with right now, there are set material they're required to provide. And some of this material obviously may not be relevant now. I mean, a timed course outline.
Right.
But there's going to more than likely be other material that we're going to need. For her to put together a packet for us to review, looking at our site and the stuff we ask for may not really be relevant
Oh, and that's fine.
for us to review. I mean, it may not have what we need, and it may have a bunch of stuff that's not even relevant for her to even be trying to put together for us.
Yeah. And that's
I
a
just don't know
general
how do we
guide.
move forward, or whether we just look at what she provides us and say, okay, this is nice, but not needed, but we need all this other stuff, and we just go back and forth. Is that potentially our,
Yes, sir. That's a general guide, and so it's
okay, so that's not state law that we have to have those items?
Yeah, so the rules basically say that the application just had to be whatever the commission says they are.
Okay.
So the rules don't actually specify, for instance, exactly what the application has to be asked in the application. I say this for pretty much all of our applications, and this really applies to any kind of license, course, whatever. We have applicants that have different issues with their applications, things like that. I tell the applicant, just upload everything in a single PDF to your application that you have that applies to the application,
Okay.
because there's going to be differences. If you have discipline in other states or things like that, there's lots of variations and stuff like that. And the courses have lots of things. Now, I can say that Ms. Bond has applied many times with us, and her applications always have the items we need. So if there's anything that we need that she does not provide, I can just reach out and ask for that. Not an issue at all. She responds back very quickly. Thank you.
And I appreciate your due diligence, too. I suspect that if I came to your class and you request certain stuff and I didn't have it, my grade would reflect that, and I might be taking your class again. But in this case, though, it's a general requirement. And so it's just, that's sort of the general stuff that we need so we can, in good faith, make a decision. Now, it's kind of like, you might in a bank, they require that you get an ID, but if I see the same guy every single day, well, I know that's Dr. Sonnerman. I'm not going to ask for his ID, that kind of stuff. So we just want to make sure that we can show that we've made a good faith effort to wholly and truly evaluate that application. And so that also requires that not our list isn't exhaustive. There might be supplementals, and whatever you need to make that good faith estimate, then we need to get that too.
And just to make sure we flush this out, so the committee will review the documents, and then everybody else will be provided with just the videos. And if we have any questions or comments, just to you and to the committee, is that how that?
That's correct. Yes, sir. And so just trying to, you guys are going to have to do some of that heavy lifting, but you can fill, of course, after we get the application, you'll get all three of you will get the application well in advance. And then whatever question you have, you can reach out directly to Ms. Bond if you like, or to me. You just can't reach out to each other. We got to do that at the committee at 9 o'clock, and then everybody else will show up at 10. All right.
Great, thank you. All right, I believe that concludes the director's report. Up next on the agenda is our legal report.
Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. I'll just briefly touch on each of the complaints, and we can discuss and vote on them as we go through each one. Number one is 2024-05-4761. In this, complainant is the homeowner of the property appraised. Complainant alleges multiple use PAP violations. Specifically, complainant points to the incorrect consideration of the sinkhole floodplain area on the property. Respondent explained that they were not made aware of any of the sinkhole floodplain areas. They provided their appraisal and work file for review. An expert reviewer conducted a review of the report. The expert noted that the respondent stated that they did not observe, was not aware of, nor was made aware of a reported sinkhole during the appraisal process, and the information was not available in public records at the time. The expert stated based on their review, they found no evidence of noncompliance with the use PAP within the appraisal, and that they found that a respondent conducted the appraisal in good faith. As such, council was recommending closure. Any questions on that one?
Questions,
Recuse
comments?
myself from this one.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Any questions, comments?
Motion to close?
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, number 2 is 2024-057771. And this complainant is a financial institution associated with the relevant appraisal report. They allege respondent used subjective language within the appraisal report. Respondent provided their report and work file for review. An expert review was conducted. The expert did not find any violations of use PAP. The expert noted other than minimal instances of vague language. Based on the investigation, the appraisal appeared compliant and credible. As such, council was recommending closure.
Motion to close? Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Complainant, this is for number 3. This is 2024-051301. Complainant is the homeowner of the property appraised. Complainant alleged multiple use PAP violations throughout the report. Specifically, the complainant point to alleged issues with the listed intended user and user, the associated easement with the property zoning, the floor plan, and the comparables used in the report. Respondent explained that complainant is involved in a contested divorce case that respondent's appraisal was ordered for. Respondent was hired by the opposing party in the aforementioned contested case, and clarifies that the matter is still involved in ongoing litigation. An expert review was conducted. In the sales comparison section, the reviewer noted a clerical error regarding the sales price for a comparable is reflective of noncompliance with use PAP regulations. However, the expert found that this was not an egregious error that in and itself undermined the credibility of their appraisal. Further, the expert noted that the exclusion of the attendant user is attributable to a software issue and noted that the error is also reflected as noncompliance, but again noted that it was not egregious, not considered to rise to the level of a 1B violation. Based on the findings, council is just recommending closing this matter with a letter of instruction pertaining to the use PAP violations. Again, a letter of instruction is not considered discipline and is not reported. It just informs them of what was found by the expert.
I can't remember a homeowner ever citing use PAP violations. This might be the first in my time on the commission, so.
It was a very detailed complaint, so.
Any discussion, comments? Well, I will make a motion to approve council's recommendation for a letter of instruction here. This individual doesn't have any past disciplinary issues, and it looks like that may have just been a one-off here, so I'll make the recommendation to approve.
Second?
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, number 4 is 2024-054751. This is the same complainant as the above complaint. Respondent is a registered trainee for the respondent in the previous complaint. There was no evidence of any violation on behalf of this respondent, so council is recommending closure.
Recuse? Motion to close.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then the final complaint is number 5, 2024-054101. Complainant alleged multiple use PAP violations throughout respondent's report. Specifically, they pointed to alleged issues with the number of bathrooms listed and the comparables utilized within the report. Respondent denied the allegations made within the complaint. An expert reviewed the report and found most of the minimum requirements of use PAP have been met with a few exceptions. The following violations were found. The first violation was respondent did not analyze the listing or sale agreement. The appraiser merely stated the facts and did not consider, and this was not considered an analysis. The second violation is the cost approach value, and the report is noted as 0. According to the appraisal report, the cost approach was not performed as it was unnecessary, and it states that this 0 listing is likely an error in the software. The third violation is a work file violation. Specifically, copies of all reports were not included in the work file presented to the review appraiser. And the fourth violation was the age of comparable number 1 was incorrect. The condition rating of comparable number 3 also appeared to be incorrect. Based on the expert reviewer's findings and the respondent's history, counsel was recommending authorizing a consent order requiring continuing education to be completed within 180 days of the execution of the consent order, and for these classes to be discussed by the commission.
Can you provide some clarity on the 2019 consent order?
Yes, I have that pulled up as well. Okay, so the first violation in that one was the respondent failed to provide a description of the type or style of a single-family residence in the area. And then respondent miscalculated the site area, as the site area is irregularly shaped and cannot be properly calculated by just multiplying 2 of the sides of the lot. Respondent failed to provide an opinion of the highest and best use. Respondent failed to provide clear information in describing the condition of the subject property. Respondent failed to use adequate comparables. Respondent made illogical statements in the report. Respondent failed to develop the cost approach, even though the home was only 2 years old and competing against new homes. Respondent improperly used a hypothetical condition. And respondent failed to consider a comparable provided by the complainant's listing agent. That was a similar sale after the listing agent, even though the presented sale appears to be a very comparable sale.
Do you know what, excuse me, I'm sorry if I jumped in. Do you know what courses were recommended in 2019 or for the consent order?
Yes, so they were required to take 14 hours of courses related to highest and best use and 14 hours of courses related to sales comparison.
I agree. I think in our email from Mr. Kopchak that recommended that we review the Appraisal Foundation's courses.
I also have those up if you guys need me to read them to you again.
I've reviewed them. I would recommend that we advise this appraiser for taking the missing explanations course is one of the courses that I identified, and open to any other courses that any other members may recommend.
Yeah, I had the missing explanations course as well, and then I thought the report writing versus form filling may be applicable. Now, these are only 4-hour courses, correct? So that would be 8 hours. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that or any thoughts on those.
Make a motion to accept Mr. Mansfield's recommendation.
And then just to clarify, the motion, is it to be completed within 180 days of the execution of the consent order in addition to continuing education minimum requirements?
Yes, wasn't sure if put that in the form of a motion just yet. Just really looking for some further discussion. I guess my hesitation would be that last time we issued 14 hours of continuing education. May or may not have got their attention, and so now we're looking at 8. So
Upon reviewing both the previous complaint and this complaint, there are less violations within this one as there was to the previous one.
Okay, I'll put that in the form of a motion. So in addition to their continuing education, the report writing versus form filling, and then the missing explanations course to be taken within 180 days.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that is the end of the legal report.
Thank you. We are ready for new business.
Sorry, one more there. We got.
I'm sorry, the rules
yeah.
review. Yes,
Yeah, we
that
snuck
slipped me. Sorry about that.
Hello again. So I think you should have a red line on your computer, on your iPads. So I don't know if anybody heard, there's new criteria coming out in 2026. And because of that, we need to update our rules. So I provided everyone a copy of the requirements through registered trainee, and just like it's got trainee, licensed, residential, and certified general, and also the hour requirements related to those courses, to those classifications. And so if you will look at our red line that today,
That'll be number 8. I'm sorry. It's number 8, not number 3. Number 3 was our red lines from earlier today, so 8 is the new stuff. Go ahead, Savannah.
yes. So for a majority of these updates, we will be complying with the 2026 criteria. So we're going to present it today in hopes that we can get it done and through, so it'll go into effect by 2026. So I'll just go through these briefly. One of the things that was added to each of the classifications is the 8-hour course in valuation bias and fair housing laws and regulations. So on the first page, you'll see amendment to the state licensed appraiser. So that's going to change the education requirements from 150 to 158 to include that successful completion of the course. And so I have amended the rule amount, hour amount, and added the new rule, the new course. The next portion is also still related to the qualifications for a state licensed appraiser. It is amending where it states in the rule that the length of a class of like 15 hours, wherever it mentions 15 hours, it's going to be except for the 8-hour course on valuation, bias, and fair housing. Okay. Also, when I was reviewing the AQB criteria, I noticed that certain spaces do not have the specific requirements of how an individual can upgrade from certain classifications. So I added how an individual may upgrade from a trainee appraiser to a state licensed appraiser. That's also provided in the criteria, and so that is what the new information is listed below. If anyone has questions at any time, please stop me. But the next rule set is 12550107, and that is for state certified residential appraiser. And that hour requirement is not going to change from 200 hours. Instead, there's a change from the electives where it was previously 20 hours. It's going to reduce down to 12. So we can add that 8-hour course in valuation bias and fair housing laws and regulations. Also, you'll see the amendment again related to the 8-hour course on valuation bias and fair housing. We'll also make amendment to the appraisal education portion related to that to change that the 150 hours is now 158. And in the next portion, subparagraph G, part 3, it's going to amend the electives from 12 hours, from 20 hours to 12 hours. Next, you'll see that added the information for how an individual can upgrade from a trainee appraiser to certified residential real estate appraiser, the courses and the specific hours that are required. And the portion that is deleted here is going to be added to in the next rule portion, or if you see the red line version, I'm on page 7 of the actual document. It stated that someone in subject in the paragraphs I is required to have the college level requirement. So now it's going to say G and H, which just reiterates that if you're going to upgrade to real estate, residential real estate appraiser, you have to have college-based education that's required there.
So that's not being removed, it's just,
No, it's just being, if you'll see the next one, so what I did was for rulemaking purposes, I moved subparagraph this one to H, and I deleted that information, and then I'm making a new I, so I'm replacing it, and so it will say what's required in G and H, required for the college level education requirements, because I added that, so that's why it looks like it's not being taken away, it's just being changed and moved to a new place. The next portion is related to general certification. Those hours from 300 are not being, it's not changing. However, the electives, again, will change here from 30 hours to 22 hours. And you'll see the 8-hour course on valuation bias and fair housing regulations. And then again, where it mentions a course is at least 15 hours, except for the 8 hours required for the valuation bias and fair housing regulations. This portion that I wanted to talk to you guys about specifically is right here on the bottom of page 9, where you see the update for an applicant applying for a state certified residential appraiser from a state licensed. So in our rules, our requirements exceed what is written in the criteria. So you'll see it is written here presently that the courses that were required were 30, 30, 30, 30, and then 60. I think it was actually 60, not 35. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. So I have recommended to changing those requirements to match what the AQB states, and wanted to know if anyone had any questions about that.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I know we can't be more strict unless we have reason,
Right.
right? And so the residential pathway, and so all the classes that they have taken are all focused on residential appraising. So when you
Yes.
switch over, that's why there was originally 2 pathways, and if you were a certified residential appraiser and wanted to upgrade, you had to retake those classes because all of the commercial, the certified general classes are focused on commercial. And so I think that would be reason to at least open some discussion on this and the next item here, because it's the same, upgrading from a certified residential to certified general. You know, there is some merit to those classes that they focus specifically on a different subset of the appraisal field.
I'm just a little confused. Anna, were you referring to page 9 when you were reading that?
Yes.
If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's talking about a state certified general appraiser in that area, but you were saying it was certified residential?
Sorry, no, it's an individual who holds a state licensed credential upgrading to state certified general.
Got it.
Quick question?
Yes.
On the top of that page, you've got added housing laws and regulations. Is that a heading or is there a number?
That's an extension of the former page. We just ran out of space there. You've got,
Oh.
yep, successful completion of the 8-hour course in valuation bias and fair housing
Oh.
law. Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mansell, could you,
I couldn't figure out what that was.
could you repeat what you were talking about there before we got sidetracked us?
Yes. So if you're a state licensed appraiser, you're taking your qualifying education, and those sales comparison classes, income classes are all going to be focused on the residential side. And so now to upgrade, or in the past to upgrade, you had to retake those classes, but where they were focused on the commercial side. And so now this is written that those hours would be reduced. And so you still are getting some experience to that. I'm not even sure if those classes exist right now. You know, education providers, if that's approved by the AQB, we'll catch on and provide those. But it is something to think about that, you know, for the income class for residential, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you were never exposed to until you take that general income class. And so we're reducing those hours. So just wanted to see if anybody else had any thoughts there.
And if anyone's looking for where the reference of where I got this math from, it's on the page 26 of the printed materials that I provided you.
Yeah, it's this is where it gets difficult, and for us too. You've got the AQB, which is the standard across the industry. Their things change. It's pretty fluid. It changes a lot, but then laws and rules don't work that way. So then it's most jurisdictions are all trying to get caught up, and then the industry itself doesn't even necessarily work that way. For example, they're requiring this valuation bias and fair housing class, and I don't know if there's a bunch of vendors that are providing that even yet. AQB is rolling it out and making it effective. Now, some folks might get caught up and provide it, but then that's what you said earlier. Said I don't even know if some of those courses at that level are even available. And Will and I talked about that as well. We were on a conference call with Anna, and you're right, they don't. So what we've done, and it's sort of inverted, our rules were reflecting the available offerings instead of the criteria. And what we're doing is sort of going back to the criteria, since that's what the law requires. But there's not many 15-hour classes. I mean, if you go to look right now at AQB, you're going to get pretty much 30-hour classes in a lot of those offerings. Because I think a lot of vendors just offer that course and so they're offering more than what the minimum is. So a lot of folks are, I guess, for a lack of a better term, are overinsured. You know what I mean?
And just so I understand, we cannot or we can make it more stringent?
I mean, as it is presently, what was written before, it says the commission shall not establish any criteria for licensure that's more stringent than what's required by the appraiser qualifications board. However, to my knowledge, I don't know if these amounts are different necessarily from the criteria previously. We did not receive a audit finding related to our requirements, but it was noted that we did have areas in which we exceed what is required by the AQB. And I know another thing just to clarify for this also, this is for individuals that upgrade to the qualifications for certified general from certain areas, and we do not receive many applications related to that upgrade for certified general. So just keep that in mind. It's available, definitely, but in practicality, we don't receive that many.
And to further complicate it, you've got a board or AQB that is constantly changing, and so everyone's trying to get caught up in jurisdictions. But then to further complicate it, we also have statute, and so what you're talking about, AQB will allow you to be more to have more qualifications on top of the minimum, But then our statute says that you cannot be more stringent or establish any criteria for license that are more stringent than the criteria established by the Federal Appraiser Qualification Board. So
I'm just confused. Our hands are tied, essentially?
I thought that if there was reason, then we could, and I'm not pushing that, but just for clarification.
You guys will hold on 1 second.
So let me speak to this a little bit. So what Anna's proposed is for the rules change to match the AQB requirement for those classes. Because that's currently what the AQB requirements is for certified general. And like she said, the number of applicants we're going to get in these categories are very minimal. I don't think we've had a single person upgrade from licensed appraiser to CG appraiser since I've been here. So that's just showing you the numbers. So the proposal is just to change it to the criteria. I can also say that in the past 6 years, not a single course provider in the United States has actually offered some of these classes. They can offer them, however, they're probably not going to for exactly what I just said. There's just simply no applicants for these positions in the U.S. So in substance, there would actually be no change for our applicants. They're actually going to take the exact same classes. It's just simply that our rules will match the AQB requirements. Because the licensing exam, for instance, for certified general, will also cover the residential portion on the licensing exam. So there's not really much effect to the applicants. It's just a change to match the AQB criteria.
In the next section, though, it's the same for certified residential to upgrade, and I would assume that there are some of those instances.
There are, but like I said, so for instance, for the certified general, the AQB has not approved a reduced hour version of the classes. So, for instance, the 60-hour class for certified general, there's no 30-hour version of it. So if I want to upgrade to certified general, I have to take the 60-hour class without exception. And that's at any state in the United States, because not a single course provider teaches a reduced class. The Appraisal Institute can teach that class, but they're probably not going to, because they don't get any applicants for that class.
And about what you was looking for, I'm trying to get there.
So I wanted to look at the previous version of the criteria to see if we have any changes related to it. And for the substantive courses that are listed for upgrading to certified general, there is not a change. There's only an amendment for the trainee appraiser and licensed residential appraiser. The hours reduced from 225 to 217 and 150 to 142, and that's to reflect the 8-hour course in valuation and fair housing bias. So the information that I'm putting forth is only slightly changed to accommodate that, but previously the criteria matches what is before you.
So you're saying that right now, if you're a licensed appraiser, you only have to have a 15-hour general, whatever, market analysis course under our statute?
For a license, what is the 15 hours of which course?
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of them that are reduced from the 30 to the 15.
Yes, yes.
And so right now, you're saying that,
That's what it is in the current version of the criteria.
okay.
Now, why the criteria doesn't match the course offerings, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question. But I think it probably goes back to kind of what Will was saying, I was saying before, is we don't see too many people that are going from these particular, these particular classifications to certified general. I don't know of many people that jump from trainee to certified general.
So when you said that that's already in place, I mean, these are the current laws that are in front of us, right? So.
Right, so the rule
Can you clarify
package
that?
is what is in rule for us. But what I'm talking about, like in the criteria for 2026, that matches the current active criteria. So our rules currently exceed this criteria, and they will exceed the 2026 criteria. Does that make sense? Does that clarify?
It does.
I'm sorry if I'm having a hard time, but we will have to adhere to these new hourly requirements, correct? Or we can go over or no, or what's the what's your thoughts on that?
So the law says we're not supposed to be more stringent than what's required for the Appraiser Qualifications Board. But if the commission has like a reasoning to exceed that, then I don't foresee I don't know. I don't foresee an issue at this point with the appraisal subcommittee when they come for an audit. However, if you were to look at our audit findings last time, you'll see that it states that Tennessee is on the list of states with criteria that does not match what's with the AQB for certain areas. So it wasn't a particular finding. We weren't, I don't want to say the word punished, but that's the one I'm looking for in this case for it. But it is noted that we exceeded. Yes.
Question. Obviously, we're requiring right now more than the standards. How often are these standards changed?
The last version, unless anyone corrects me, is from 2021. And so this has been an update in 5 years.
Okay, so it's not necessarily something that changes every year.
Correct.
Okay.
And I believe sorry, I apologize for interrupting you. The recommended changes to this criteria were published in 2024.
Okay. I'm new to some of this. How long would it take us to get these changes in place of your? these
So
rule changes?
rulemaking takes about a year. So that's why it's here before you guys today. So we can anticipate it to be in effect by 1/1/2026. So if everything moves according to plan, we should be able to have our rules effective by 1/1/2026.
Is there anything we can do? I think Glenn talked a little bit to us before the meeting about trying not to be in this situation where we're out of compliance for at least a year now. I mean, obviously, because the rulemaking changes take so long, it's not like we want to be in this position, but obviously, and then also, because of the rulemaking change takes a year, then the vendors may take even longer to get courses in place that are only 15 hours. So then at the same time, we've got potential candidates who want to take advantage of the rule change are still taking 30-hour courses when all they needed was 15-hour courses because that's all that we have approved. So, I mean, what can we do to avoid having this situation in the future?
So I'd like to clarify that none of the changes in this rulemaking package are not in effect at this time. So they don't go in effect until next year. And usually what happens is that the AQB will give us enough time to promulgate the rules so that we'll be in compliance by the time that happens. However, as mentioned before, this requires a rulemaking process that takes a lot of time. So we kind of briefly discussed, making the rules look so it says, whatever the AQB says, that's what we do. However, I, at this time, do not know how to do that with our rules. So I don't know how that looks, what to get rid of and what to keep. So it has that blanket statement. So I know that we were going to talk about that further later. However, if we were to keep moving forward with this process, I wanted to go ahead and approve it and get it before you guys, your approval, so we can move forward with this the way it is, so we can still be on the same timeline. But if we want to consider talking about changing our rules completely, so it looks like we don't have to go through this rulemaking process every time the criteria is updated, we can do that at the next meeting.
And I appreciate, Anna's approach to that, because obviously, January 1's, we're moving quickly towards it'll be here for, and I couldn't even believe it, we're here again in another year, 2025. I remember it's like a year ago, and, we were at the team, we're talking about, well, it'll be the holidays. Well, we just skipped it the whole entire year. I still don't know where we put it. But, so that's why we're starting, and because that process takes so long, we want these effective by the time we want it effective January 1, so we're compliant with them. But to your point, you're sort of a road post or a signpost that points to AQB and just simplifies all of it. So we're not changing the rules. I would love that, but until we're able to hammer that out and get approval to our leadership too, this is what we have in front of us to make sure that we get to January 1. And so that's the idea. So it could change, but it may not. And we want to make sure we got something in the hopper so that way because January 1's coming.
Is there any way later on this year when it looks like, I know we can't do anything officially until the rules are approved, but is there any way for us to potentially warn some of our major course providers of this coming down the road for them?
I think they are aware because a lot of them, not all of them, obviously, your point, but I think they're pretty well aware because it poses an opportunity for them.
I know, I just want to make sure that we
Oh, yeah, there's, we do that through e-notify. We're gonna send out,
Okay,
you know,
good.
sort of kind of get them ready, you know, and, well, we need these courses too. So, you know, we could do our part, and we're doing that now by, you know, promulgating rules, and appreciate Anna doing that. But we also need the course providers to provide courses.
Okay.
And most course providers provide courses for multiple jurisdictions. So, and not all jurisdictions, their requirements exceed ours. So I would assume that they are aware of these changes, of how it's in the criteria since it's been in effect since 2021. So it won't be too much of a change. The only one that will be the biggest change will be providers to add that 8-hour course that is now going to be required in 2026 related to the evaluation and fair housing laws and regulations.
It seems like we're in general disagreement with what the AQB has done, but it seems like we should just get on board. We don't really have another choice, is what I'm kind of hearing. Seems like they made kind of some pointless changes, but we need to just adopt them.
And this would have to be adopted today in order to be in compliance by January of 2026.
So the portions related to, if we want to have another conversation related to changing what's required for state certified residential and state licensed individuals to upgrade to state certified general, we could, technically, I can remove those from the package, but that, again, would just create another rulemaking package at this time. So, but like, here's the other thing that can also happen is that I guess my question is, I would need to hear what the reasoning is to keep the rules how it is right now. And if it is decided that we want it to keep it instead of changing it, we can make amendments to the package as it's presented today and between whatever the date of the rulemaking hearing is. So if between now and the next meeting, someone has a reason to be like, hey, let's not do this, I can change that at the hearing. But right now, I'm not hearing anything specifically, but for what Chair Mansfield said related to the hours as to why we should not change it to match the AQB.
Any reason, or do we know why the AQB has reduced their requirements?
I don't know. Again, this has been in effect since 2021, so I'm not really aware at this time.
Was there any, is the board moving, is there any sort of, what's your inclination, I guess, is I kind of just want a baseline of how the board feels about the rules in particular?
Yeah, so my thought is that this education, when you're switching from a licensed appraiser to a certified general appraiser, is necessary because there's a lot of issues and things that are completely different. That being said, I don't want us to be out of compliance, and I'm not going to die on that hill, but I do think that I don't agree with the AQB stance in reducing those for an upgrade. You know, I guess if that was the original path, you know, to a certified general, you know, and you looked at that on its own, then maybe, but it's really two different sets of that don't overlap a whole lot. And so allowing a reduced requirement to make that jump, you know, it feels, because we've talked about this on this commission in the past, you know, our education and like, hey, how do we make sure that the education providers are delivering the appropriate education? And that is something that we've talked about and potentially trying to monitor that and have gone back and forth. And so then to just reduce the requirements, you know, I'm not sure the reasoning behind it. But again, I'm going to be open to whatever the commission feels and decides. And, you know, that's just my requirements.
Nelson Pratt had some comments as well. Sir, were you still there? Did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo, I mean, while we may or may not agree with the reduction in that, I'm not sure I do either, but it seems like we need to approve this just to be in compliance. I mean, to William's comments, I don't even know that those 15, hour courses will be put into place. Actually, I mean, I think the number of people that will be taking these is pretty minimal. So I think, I think we need to be in compliance. B, I think anyone that's going to make this, upgrade is going to have to take those, standard courses anyway. And then thirdly, in the event there were to be courses developed, they were approved and implemented, we're still going to review the application of the individual at that time to see if they meet the criteria, right? So, my thought is that it seems like we need to be in compliance. So, like it or not, I'm kind of with Brad on. I don't know why they would reduce it. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but at this point, my thoughts would be, we need to approve so that we're in compliance.
What happens if we aren't in compliance?
Then if we're not in compliance, I mean, I'm not sure right now. This past time we did not get cited, but they give you, when we are audited, there's different levels of, I think is what, excellent, good, needs improvement, and something below that, and not in compliance. And the lower your rating is, the more often the ASC comes to audit our program. So last time we got good, and so that means they come every other year, every 2 years. But if we were to move to new needs improvement or something, that would be more of an annual requirement. And so we obviously want to not be in that category. We are not less than excellent. But that is generally kind of what happens in those, in that circumstance. I'm trying to pull up the version of the criteria from 2018 to see what that looks like. So the criteria from 2018, it looks like even that version of the 2018, it matches with what the changes would be now. It was 225, 150, and 100. But as I mentioned, it changed to 217 and 142 because they added the 8-hour course and reduced the electives. So we've been a little bit more than the AQP for at least the past 7 years.
And keep in mind, these are upgrades that are itemized here, so they've already taken a lot of courses that they're getting credit for already, so they're,
Right, so this is just listing the courses that are required to look at the upgrade. So obviously, if they have courses that right now, so if we're saying that the 15-hour course, of one of these does not exist and they have 30 hours, then they can upgrade. So it would just be extra, which I think is what's happening right now since we don't have those courses. And the course providers are well aware of this change since it's been in effect for at least the past 7 years.
I think that we're, again, our hands are tied. I don't like being told how we have to be in compliance by the AQB, but I understand it. And with Mr. Pratt and Mr. Vandiver, I'm just going to put a motion out there that we adopt, unless we're not done.
We're not.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll hold that then.
Yes.
So if we do adopt the AQB and go to 15 hours and we're conducting an experience interview, and we feel that there's a missing link somewhere where they probably need 15 more hours, is it out of bounds for us to require that before they move on?
I don't think you can require a specific course, but I don't think you have to approve that individual for an upgrade, if that makes sense.
It does.
they're eligible once they hit a baseline or a minimum experience level, but that may just mean they need more experience, that didn't quite take, you know what I mean? So they may have to just, if they're not ready, they're not ready, you just sort of, you kind of recycle them, So.
Okay. Thank you for your reluctant compliance. I appreciate it. I understand where we are in this area, but I don't like good. I would like to be excellent. So I'm doing my best to make sure that our rules match that so we can be in the excellent category. However, if there is an area where we start to see substantial issues, we can address that at that time. So again, thank you.
And we're due a review this year, actually. So I haven't heard from them. I think they're probably backlogged a little bit, but.
Don't summon them.
But so I would say sooner than later, unfortunately. But so we'll wait and see how that goes. But yeah, this would be a good step in that direction.
Yeah, it will help us. I feel like I need to knock on wood, but it's too late. Okay, so after that, I just again added that for at the bottom of page 10, since I made those changes, it is adding the requirements that are currently required from an individual to upgrade from a trainee appraiser to state certified general appraiser. That's there. And then there will be another subparagraph I that will be included to state that if you are upgrading from trainee license to residential, you have to satisfy the college level educational requirements that are specified beforehand. The next one is an amendment to the registered trainee portion, and this is the paragraph 1E. And so right now it has listed the current requirements of the classes, but I added in there the 8-hour course for evaluation bias and fair housing laws. And I'm going to hurry because my computer's dying. Then the next one at the bottom of the 11, it shows the reflection of from 75 to 83. As I've mentioned before, it's just in a lot of different places. And then adding the course again here. Also, so those are the changes to the different classifications related to the criteria. Another change that happened is very minor, but I have to change it in a lot of different places, is that the 7-hour National Uniform Use PAP course is not called the update course anymore. It's called the continuing education course. So I added that in paragraph 7B. Of the registered trainee portion of the rules. And then here in our requirements for course content guidelines, you'll see that I added 14, 15, 16, and 17. Those were missing from our list that in it now, just this list matches courses that are available that matches what's provided in the criteria. So for our continuing education, for some reason, we didn't have those listed, so I added them in there. And the valuation bias and fair housing laws. Any questions on that? Okay. The next one you'll see there's, again, I'm changing the update to continuing education. Also, the National Instructor Certification course, the 7-hour requirement has been removed, so I have to take that out in the rules there in that portion. And then, again, update to continuing education. The next one on paragraph at the top of page 14, these are the new requirements required for the valuation bias and fair housing laws that is required every 2 calendar years. So it states the first time that an appraiser completes the course, it's 7 hours, and then there's a 1-hour examination. So it's that 8 hours. But after that, every 2 calendar years is 4 hours. So I put that in the rules there. And then, again, update to continuing education, update to continuing education, and then adding continuing education in the last chapter, in the last paragraph. Any final closing thoughts?
Just a question. So
Yes.
if this starts on January 1st, 2026, so moving forward from there in your next renewal cycle, you'll be required to take this class.
That's correct.
So if your renewal date was, let's say, January 15th, 2026, that would be required at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
There's and at some point, once, as we get closer, and it'll be there sooner before we know it, we'll have to probably send out an e-notify, because that's a big shift, you know what I mean? And then with the, there's also an FAQ page on AQB as well, Appraisal Foundation, that adjusts or answers a lot of those type of questions for us, which is helpful. It's, you know, but yes, if they're into that calendar period, then they're subject to that requirement, yep.
Right, so since the criteria is coming into effect in 2026 and this this course is required, though it doesn't exist at this point, it better exist by January, or we're gonna have a lot of appraisers out of compliance with the criteria. So I'm assuming, and I know that gets me, that course providers are in the works of creating this course. There's no reason to have it at this time because it's not required in 2025.
Another comment that's kind of more of a vent. If they're going to require this new class, they need to go back to teaching USPAP in the USPAP class and then teach valuation bias in the valuation bias class, because all the last USPAPs have been valuation bias.
So USPAP has changes too that are coming in 2026, but it's not written in our rules. So if you would like, what we can do is, so obviously when we do the rulemaking process, we send out notifications to individuals of this, so they'll see the changes that are here, but we can do an additional notify that lets everyone know of the specific changes that are coming in the criteria and the specific changes that are coming in USPAP. Like I know specifically also, I believe in USPAP, they've added an outline of what is to be required in the valuation bias and fair housing course. So I didn't add that in there because we don't have outlines for any other courses, but the specific outline of the content's there. So we can do that to let people know, and we can, if you want, send it closer to date, or we can send one now and then another one closer to date. I don't mind spamming inboxes, especially if it's something as important as this, to let people know what's going to be required
Yeah, I
in
think that would be
2026.
great. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll need a motion so we can move forward with this.
I'll make a motion to adopt the AQB criteria updates.
Got a motion on the floor in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I think that concludes the
Thank
legal
you.
now. Thank you, Anna. Now we are ready for new business.
Do we have any new business? If not, we'll need to get to the public comment section, so we won't be able to adjourn until after that. But yeah, any new business, we'll float that. All right. Hearing none, then, if it's okay, Chair, can we move to the public comment section? Okay. All right, we're at the public comment section. I'm just going to check. I know we have one. Mr. McGuigan, you can come on forward. And then I'll get that when you want to speak. Mr. McGuigan is here, and he'd like to address the commission.
Good morning. How y'all doing? My name is Kevin McGuigan, and I'm a local commercial real estate appraiser here in Nashville. I'm a member of the Appraisal Institute and currently the president of the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition. I spoke at the June 17th, 2024 meeting, and I'm here this morning to hopefully revive the discussion of appraiser complaint reform. The last time I was here, I laid out my comments like an appraisal. First, identified the problem, which simply stated is an unnecessary punitive complaint process for frivolous cases. Second, presented 5 comparables, 4 states that have more reasonable processes where a frivolous allegation could be dismissed before a full USPAP review. The 5th was the Tennessee Attorneys Board of Professional Responsibility. All 5 comps have a filtering process. Lastly, I reconciled that we should consider reforming our complaint process. In the discussion afterwards, there were comments from commissioners which generally gave credence to the idea that they were open to reforming the complaint process. The staff attorneys appeared to be more reluctant to change the process because of departmental rules. However, I believe that they understood the need for reform and the benefit which could be accomplished. My goal today is to ask, what is the next step? How can we work together to take small steps forward? I'm seeking a way for us to work together to accomplish this task within the rulemaking and administrative side of reform without having to initiate legislative action. I have 3 requests that I believe are accomplishable. The first request is an attempt to implement a filter. A couple of questions the state could ask every complaint. Is this complaint about a real estate appraisal document, or is this complaint about the appraiser's business practices? This is Texas's jurisdictional concept. Does the complainant have reasonable grounds for filing the complaint? This is the probable cause concept from Minnesota and Florida. A filter could prevent frivolous complaints from turning into full use PAP reviews, where the appraiser could be sanctioned for something totally unrelated and potentially subjective. The second request is to revise the procurement process for hiring outside contract reviewers. The reviewers have an immense amount of power. Comments from the state at the last meeting where comments from the state at the last meeting where they cannot control the hiring process. The lowest bidder wins these types of assignments in an RFP. This is a tough pill to swallow. The reviewers are at the core of answering a sometimes subjective question: does this appraisal comply with USPAP? Appraisers, the state, the commission, and the public would benefit from having the most qualified reviewers answering this tough question. I have been told that currently the TREAC has a surplus budget. The hiring of reviewers should be based on their appraisal review education, their credentials, the volume of work which has been performed. Basically, review competency and aptitude should be the determining selection criteria, not the lowest bid. The third request is to implement specific assignment conditions to reviewers. When an assignment is given to complete a review, instruct the reviewers in a manner that better defines their role and their scope of work. By providing adequate instructions, it will lead to more reasonable and objective results. These directives should establish a framework for the reviewer to eliminate any subjective determinations or opinions as to whether an appraisal report is USPAP compliant. In other words, make sure the reviewer understands to look favorably on the appraiser's work and to understand that minimal USPAP compliance is sufficient USPAP compliance. As discussed at the last meeting, you can find a USPAP violation in every appraisal if you want to be overly critical. To conclude, I ask hopefully, what is the best way that we can work together to implement these actionable items for everyone's benefit? We're asking for three things: a filter for obvious frivolous cases, a better RFP process for outside contract reviewers, and very clear instructions when engaging reviewers. When talking with peers and colleagues, we want to make clear that we do not want to rewrite the entire complaint process. I think that these small changes can make the current process more fair and equitable, while at the same time upholding the law and punishing bad actors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGuigan. Thank you for your patience. I believe at the June meeting, we had, when we had met, we were, there was a potential for a submission of some sort of ideas, and Glenn and staff would flush those out, correct, and run and see how that looks in our current system, and then they could bring it back to the commission. So have you provided those in writing yet? I think that would probably be the first step, is to.
Yes, so that is the point of my comments today, is what do I need to do? I would be happy to provide the actionable items in a written statement. Be happy to meet with somebody, understand the sunshine law and having open public comments. But I'd be happy to hash this out in a public forum.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate your comments. It just basically, those three proposals in sort of a practical approach, and then what that allows us to do as a commission, just on the administrative side of things. And I, again, apologize for the noise. I don't know what that is, but anyway, the building, it's alive, But anyway, just those 3 points, and where do you believe those what the commission can practically do within its authority, and then that gives us an opportunity to marshal the resources and to respond. And where there's discretion, so obviously that that'll be afforded to the commission. There are some issues that you might run into, but then that would be in the response, and then that allows us to dialogue administration with the association as well. So we welcome those comments, and so, yeah, send those to me, and and when I say formal proposal, it's nothing more formal than just, hey, these 3 items. It could be an email, it doesn't have to be sort of a, a glossy whatever, or something necessarily officially from the association. It could just be something that, that you feel passionate about as well, but something of that effect that gives us a chance to respond.
Understood. I do have a follow-up. Would you like for me to, put forth a plan on how to, I think the biggest request is a filtering process. And I left it a little bit open-ended on how that might occur. And I think that it would be best if we looked at other states to see how they did it. And I don't know how, would you like for me to just lay out that general request or more specific?
Put down what you want.
Say it again?
Put down what you want.
Okay.
Exactly, instead of leaving it to our decision, because just put what you want.
I think if you could provide some example, anything you can to kind of strengthen your argument might be helpful, so.
Understood. Thanks so much.
Thanks, sir. There's somebody else online. If you could just state your name, and then the floor is yours.
Melissa Bond, I have one other comment
Yes, ma'am.
for the public comment. I listened to all of your discussion about your QE and having to do a lot of rearranging in your rules to align with AQB. Pretty in-depth, but it sounds like you do have a handle on it. And yes, January 1, 2026, all appraisers, of course, in their licensing cycle will have to have that valuation bias and fair housing laws and regulations for QE. And then the other course is the CE course, which is a 7-hour course that every credentialed appraiser will have to take. I have, as a course provider, it's already developed, it's already approved in many states, and I am offering it now. As we know, the Appraisal Foundation, the AQB, has encouraged that states implement this just as soon as possible and accept it from their licensees. Because of the nature of the reason the valuation bias course has become a requirement, the sooner appraisers are aware of fair housing laws and the regulations, the better. So I already do have a course that will go out. And in fact, I'm teaching it in February, and I think I've got it set up for 5 other months already for this year, 2025. So appraisers can be proactive with doing what they should do. So, there's a lot of rationale behind why that course is being required. There's been a lot of movement, as you know, in the last few years, with maybe some accusations that were founded or unfounded, but that's why this course is having to be brought to each and every one. So I just did want to let you know that your course providers are reactive to things like this. As I said, mine's already developed, mine's already ready to go and approved. Tennessee as well. Just wanted to add that comment.
That was helpful. Thank you, Ms. Bond.
Any additional comments, public comments? All right, hearing none, we are ready to adjourn. All those in favor, leave.
Thank you all.
Aye, yes.